Hello, and welcome to the No One Asked You podcast. For this particular series under the No One Asked You umbrella, I am joined by my wonderful co-host, ThatDarnKitteh. Kitty and I are both going into this story completely new with almost no knowledge of the story or world.
Each segment we intend to cover what happens in each new chapter and discuss our experiences along the way. This is Mistborn Abridged, a blind read-through, and today we will be covering the prologue chapter.
Okay, so the very first introduction that we get into this world is a little blurb before the prologue even starts. And it starts, "Sometimes I worry that I'm not the hero everyone thinks I am." And it's unknown to me at this time if it's a journal or a character's inner monologue. I have an understanding roughly of the premise of what this world is built upon. I'm curious to hear what you thought of this moment.
I was wondering who is talking. Obviously, I get that. That's what we want. But what was really okay? So my introduction as well. I read what came before the actual start of the book was I read the preface. Okay, the preface. How do you say that? The preface.
Oh gosh,
Okay.
I've only ever thought it. Now I don't know.
Yeah, I've never read it out loud.
I
Yeah.
think it's
So
preface.
yeah, preface. Yeah. So I actually just read a little bit about what he. So I got a little bit of Sanderson's thinking beforehand, and one of the things he was saying is that there's tropes of characters, but that we can recognize, but then also he puts some of those on their head.
Well,
I was looking out from that from the beginning. So when I read that, the sometimes I worry I'm not the hero everyone thinks I am. It's not too subversive. It's not like, oh, okay, the hero trope is gone. It's just it is an inner monologue of the hero. It's a reasonable thing for a hero to be wondering about. Also,
right.
there are like he talks. I like the idea that you want to hear this. What there's always this chosen one in a fantasy book, right?
Right.
And the hero, the big hero, and what do you do when once you know you're that person?
According to all the signs, the philosophers assure me that this is the time and the signs have been met. So
Exactly.
this character clearly doubts himself, but
Yeah.
everyone seems to be telling him he's the chosen one of some kind. Now, I acknowledge I've watched so many of Brandon Sanderson's lectures, so I understand going into this. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
this is a spoiler or not. The premise for this world is, what if the villain won? I'm assuming that this is the hero that lost, like an insight into his mind. And this is setting us up for that expectation that this is going to be a darker world in that sense.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, from that, from if I can see how you can see it that way, from having that insight into the man, the author, and just what this book means. What he's trying just to me the only from coming from that just the that little blurb thing, it was very much so. Also just I think to also disclaimer, or not a disclaimer, just a caveat. I've been re-listening to Wheel of Time, so so I'm coming fresh out of there, so I'm in the traditional place, so this will be quite interesting to have that if the bad guy won kind of thing going on straight after I've come out of Wheel of Time. Um, okay.
Then in the prologue, we get our very first line of the story itself. Ash fell from the sky.
I love that. I really do.
It's a powerful line.
Yeah.
It sets up, I think, the tone. Like, I'm in my mind, I'm imagining almost everything now, like in shades of gray.
Yes. For me, yeah, this whole world is very gray in my mind. Gray and just dull. Not very colorful. Obviously not just ashen, but just everything seems muted because it seems the sky light is not the way we're used to it. The sky's not blue. You've got like a red sun.
Right.
Yeah, and ash from fell from the sky. just even reading that, you're like, oh, okay, are we going to be getting into this disaster zone? Because that's, things have just that's let's say like I don't know, Daenerys has just come has just burnt the whole city and all of that. That's the kind of feeling you get, but this is actually no, it's just a normal thing that happens. That you get that one feeling, oh, ash, that means an ash falls from the sky when there's a disaster, when there's been a fire, when there's been something big going on, and then it goes on to him basically explaining how it's a pain in the ass, excuse my language, but it's ordinary.
Yes, and what you've said that I think is really insightful builds into this element that I think I might have clued into. Our first POV character is this, I think it's fair to call him a villain, Lord Tressting.
Yes.
And because this is our first introduction into the world, I think this is supposed to impart in us, the reader, how the world views what the state of life is to these people. There are noblemen, there are ska.
Mm.
Everything is
Yeah.
bleak. And, well, we'll get into it. But we learn fairly quickly that Lord Tressting was expecting a distinguished guest, someone whose name we never actually learn. He's just referred to as the Obligator.
And that, you put that into plot, right? Because obviously it is plot, but
Yes,
it's in world building too. We will as we go through learn about kind of the role of an obligator. It's just if you're talking about writing style, it's given it a capital letter. So it's we know it's a term, it's a name for a thing. So it is part of the world building in my opinion as well.
yes. And for those who can't see because it's not on screen, as we're reading through this, Kitty's channel, she is so wonderful. She does debate diagrams and book diagrams. So I took a leaf out of her book and I
Ha!
tried diagramming this chapter.
I
And
think
I've
it's great.
broke, yay! I've broken it down into four categories: plot, world building, character, and themes miscellaneous.
I will maybe I just sorry I might try to put this into Xmind. We can make a team on Xmind and maybe we put it there because the structure. I'll take exactly what you put here and put the structure into Xmind and see if you like the way it looks there, and then we can actually share it for people to look at.
Absolutely. And then perhaps when we can share these diagrams, we'll do that in that darn Discord.
Yeah, join
So,
today.
the Lord Trusting is the first character we're introduced to. He's a lord having distinguished guests. I don't think we learn immediately the point and of these guests, and we'll get into that. But what we do get are very specific belief statements regarding the ska,
Mm-hmm.
right? So he has a very specific worldview. He thinks that the ska are sluggish and indolent, that they don't hope, they don't complain, they don't think. This is a country lord, a country nobleman, and when he thinks of the ska, he's referring to his workers, his plantation farmers, his servants.
Yeah.
Uh,
In just to comment on, okay, so even in your diagram you put Scar with a capital S. In his writing, no capital. They don't even have a capital name. It's a race, or not a race, but like it's a group of people, a class of people, but it doesn't have a capital letter. I know that that's a tiny little detail, but I love it. It was one of and it was very
it
difficult. This is a fantasy world. He's
it
just interrupt.
dehumanizes
Yeah,
them.
exactly. He's just exactly he I because it's a fantasy world, I'm trying to figure out what is who are the Scar and whatever. And are they creatures? Are they, he literally uses the word creatures for certain things. Are they biologically different to him or whatever? No, they're just people, but they're Scar. So you
It
can actually he
well,
demonstrates there's some
I
humanness like that.
I went through that exact same process. I didn't realize or think of them as human until I
Mm-hmm.
started looking for photos for this discussion, which, again, it speaks specifically to Tresting's point of view and what I think we are supposed to interpret as the normal worldview.
Yeah. exactly. But he takes the normal worldview in terms of beatings, what's good, what's bad. All it's very very much so the dehumanizing. He makes a very good show of what the Scar are, how low they are, and how they are thought of. Like you're just saying, and that also is that a direct quote? The Scar don't complain, hope, or think. Well, they're not
Uh,
supposed to.
yeah,
Yeah.
that is a quote.
Mm.
We also get an interesting little timeline. There's a moment Tresting says something to the effect of one would think 1,000 years of working on farms would have made them better at it by now.
Yeah.
Essentially, this relationship between the nobleman and the Ska seems to have been going on for lifetimes.
Mm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I can see that under the world building. Mm.
Tresting has an obligator who's doing some sort of inspection of his plantation and how he works. The obligator is from Luthadel. He is a full obligator, unlike the others at Tresting's manor, and he's marked with distinctive face tattoos. And a very important element here is Tresting seems to be very unsettled by the obligator,
Hmm.
which I think is building a hierarchy here. The Ska fear the noblemen fear the obligators. I'm curious to see if there's anyone the obligators fear. I would guess it's the Lord Ruler that we learn about.
Yeah, because the obligators, they seem to. It's not like they're just they at the same time they're not above the noble people, but they function in ways that will affect a noble person. That will they are going to decide whether things go well for you or not. So they do have way more power, but at the same time they still kind of servants. That I still get
Well,
that they're servants to the yeah.
Trusting thinks of the Lord Ruler as God, not a God, as God. And
Mm,
he mentions that while most people think of the obligators as bureaucrats, they are in fact priests.
of the god. Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah,
We also learn a little bit later about this group called the Steel Inquisitors, which I'm assuming are essentially policemen, the
yeah,
Gestapo or what have you, which puts the obligators in an entirely different category.
yeah. To them, and they are that they that like you said they are what did you call them, bureaucrats.
Yeah.
So the steel obviously is the enforcer, the steel inquisitor. Well, it's like those. Okay, well they'll send the inquisitors then. They would have. He even speaks about it where he's like, if he was really worried about the way he's treating his woman, well,
And we're
his
about to
woman.
get into
Yeah,
that.
yeah, exactly. So maybe let's get to that.
Yes. So essentially, what we learn is that Lord Trusting is trying to broker some sort of deal with someone named Lord Venture. And in order to do that, Lord Venture has sent over one of his personal obligators to do a
Broker.
rundown,
Yeah.
to observe, to learn, to gather information. And
Mm.
the obligator mentions that there are rumors that Lord Trusting likes to dally with Ska women. I'm getting the sense that this concept of the two interbreeding is going to be a very, very important element in the
Yes.
story. It seems to be extremely taboo.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the obligator brushes off the rumors as he views Trusting very favorably. But as if it wasn't enough that Tresting is already feeling unsettled by the obligator, it hints that the rumors are true, and he does do this.
Yeah.
Or
But
does it
it's
even hint? It outright says.
no, it does. Yeah, it does. Outright says it. It's just yeah. We're in his mind. We don't. I don't get the feeling that there is any question that this is
Yeah.
that's true. I feel like there would be other feelings expressed or whatever if this wasn't true. It's more like, oh, what is he going to do about it? Not, it's not true. It's more like,
Right.
okay, what are you going to do with knowing this? Because I can't hide it. It wasn't even a thing. That's actually not. Didn't even get that far to that point of oh well, how do I deny it or anything? Not even that sort of thing. It's just what is he going to do with this information? And there is this understanding that he cleans up after himself, therefore it's fine.
Yes. So now things are more or less going well. The obligator says, I'm going to give you a very favorable report. And at this point, Lord Trusting sees something strange. He sees a lone Ska looking defiantly at him. He looks away for a moment and then he looks back to find that the Ska has disappeared completely.
Mm-hmm.
At which point he orders the Ska in that area to be beaten, and that ends his point of view for this chapter.
Just another thing though, which just the kind of the a subtle thing that he thinks when because he orders that the what's the name, the taskmaster to beat them, but he won't explain anything. He doesn't want the
Yes.
taskmaster to think. So he even says like he wouldn't have them thinking. He doesn't want the taskmaster even knowing what the reason for this was. But then you're also learning that you don't really need a good enough reason. I think he even says you don't need. He he was a bit confused, but hey, doesn't really need a good reason to perform a beating on a whole bunch of people. So
Right.
very, very much that you've been introduced to this way of life. This is the way it is for this guy.
Exactly. And it, again, it sets up this situation in which the noblemen seem to be in fear. They seem to have this
Mm,
fear. Uh, and one would think noblemen would be in a privileged position in society. Um, and it certainly seems that way to a point.
yeah,
Um,
you have here they have certain appearances and not even just appearances, just obligations. They have they have they have obligations to uphold their position is something they have to hold on to. They're not just living with it. They are they're all I don't know, scheming, not scheming, but they're working in their own way to keep every thought is about not about oppression or whatever, but there is always consideration for this, subordination of these people. Is it, and then also how all of your actions as a noble person, how they're going to be perceived by whoever. It's a very there's lots of power dynamic going on. All the considerations are about power because it's like, okay, well, this obligator has the power over me. Um, I have obvious. I don't want even the person who is under me in the hierarchy, very far under me, a taskmaster. I don't need him to think that I was concerned about a Scar person
right.
being defiant. So all of those tiny little things, it shows you what it's like to be within this system. I love it.
Exactly. Another important belief statement or view or opinion that we get is his opinion of Luthadel, which seems
Mm,
to be, I think, the big city. It's possibly the capital. It's referenced by a few characters in this chapter, but when he thinks of the city, he thinks of intrigue, balls, parties, and glamour.
mm.
Tresting is a country lord, a country nobleman, and it seems he would like to go to Luthadel one day.
Yeah,
So,
he needs to, and he's like even thinking of how to, because the guy says, "Oh, one day you might land up in Luthadel, the obligator." Um, he might land up one day in his. There's this kind of like, "Oh, I'm going to give you such a favorable thing, and then if we continue this sort of work, one day you might land up in the city, kind of become a city lord," which seems to be, like you've said, it seems to be the actually him reaching higher, he would want to do that. He even starts thinking about how he can get this order in, and try and get another harvest or something. Like basically push harder so that he could try and get closer to getting into the city at a later stage.
yes. And with such tantalizing ambition, he thinks to himself that he might like to celebrate with a young girl from the 14th hovel.
Yay.
So, this is not a good guy.
No, I don't like him. But I don't think
And
we're supposed to.
is there anything else you would like to say before we move on to Kelsior's POV in this chapter?
I think we've gone over everything up there now, Calcio.
Wonderful. Then we get what I suspect will be a main character, if not the main character, uh,
Mm-hmm.
for the story, Kelsior. And one of the things that I picked up on my first read through is this smile. And he has one of my favorite lines so far. If I can have one, only one
Oh, I
chapter
wonder
in.
if because I highlighted some. But wait, what favorite line?
Ooh.
Okay.
Well, we'll get to it. We'll get to
Okay,
it.
okay, okay, we'll get to it. Let's see if it matches because I highlighted something as well. I've just highlighted certain things. Thank you, Kindle, that I'm not ruining a book with a highlighter.
Man, I thought so hard about doing that with my book, and I can't bring myself to it. So I just
No.
have to like open the book, look at it, type in the computer, look back. Oh gosh. So what we learn, Kelsior had heard stories. He had heard whispers of times when once long ago the sun had not been red. So the red sun seems to be almost oppressive, and there's this myth, I suppose, 1,000 years. There's this myth of a time when life was good, so to speak. And we learn that Kelsior is a traveler, and it's evening, and Kelsior is making his way to one of the Ska hovels as the mists begin to settle, and we learn that the mists are dangerous.
Yeah, supposedly. Well, they are dangerous, yes, but the mist itself is not the danger.
Yes,
That's what I got. There's these two conflicting ways that the way he sees the mist and the way the rest of the Ska see the mist. And you don't really know he's a Ska yet. Um,
correct.
which I mean, it does come in, but for me, I was like, wait, is he part of them? Who could he have been the one that was looking in that way? I couldn't tell. I was yeah, he seemed very separate.
Well, like in my notes for him, I wrote Kelsior, the smiling Ska. So basically, when it
Mm-hmm.
kept talking about him smiling, I think that's what clued me in to the likelihood that they are one and the
Did
same.
I? Oh, did I? When did it say that?
Good evening, everyone, Kelsior said with a smile.
Okay, so it's much later. Okay, much later. I mean, as in like a few paragraphs down. So the feeling that I had. Yeah,
And again,
I only when you started speaking and getting more into conversation, I was trying to figure out what is he, because he's a traveler and is he noticeable as someone different? And these scars mean something different. But yeah, he. So for you, okay, so for you, you were like from the beginning, like literally first few like paragraphs in before you spoke. Did you? I guess it's because of just how small my Kindle is that I'm feeling like there is a lot more time between. I don't read that slow, but it feels like there was a lot more thinking going on before he started speaking for me. Interesting. It's just a
for
tiny,
me,
tiny,
it's
tiny difference in our experience.
I suppose. But
Hmm.
he also thinks I'll have to. He thinks to himself, their fear of the mists was far too strong. I'll have to cure them of that someday. So in addition to this smiling, I
Mm.
think he has this sort of flippant arrogance is not the right word, but
Yeah, it's
uh,
confidence that's unbefitting
of a
of a
ska.
scar.
Yes,
And he does put himself apart from them. He literally calls them them. So it's like I need to cure them of that someday. Obviously he has to because they are them. It's not like a literary device that's being used there. But I just got that feeling of him being so different from them. I was like, wait, is it visible that does he act a certain way? What do the noblemen see? That's what I was more interested in. Like, is he visible on the plantation, or does he have to sneak around at night all the time? I don't know.
right.
Um, either way, then eventually it does come together that okay, he is just like you. I like the smiling scar, which yeah, I love that idea of the smile, the fact that he smiles, and that the elder almost smiles back but can't.
Yep.
Okay, sorry, I'm going ahead.
Uh, so immediately there's a bit of tension between Kelsior and a Ska elder, not an elderly Ska, but a
Mm-hmm.
Ska elder whom is viewed sort of as a thuggish leader of this particular hovel named Tepper. And we basically learn that it is extremely rare for people. Is it Ska specifically or is it people? I didn't make a note of this. To travel between places, to travel from plantation to plantation. But what brings that is possible danger, but also news of the outside world. So all of the Ska are kept in very insular fashion.
Mm. I'm trying to look for it to see if it's because I also remember it was a thought in the mind of Tepper, or not Tepper,
Or
it was some
menace.
sort of or menace. So yeah, where it was they don't and also it's
Uh,
seen as
Te-
troublemaking to hear anything outside of the scarf.
Tepper,
Like
Tepper's
yeah,
face reddened. Ska did not travel, and they certainly didn't dine
yeah,
with lords. You think me a fool, traveler, Tepper said, but I know what you're doing. And we learn through that he's the one they call the survivor, and he has these scars on his arm.
layers and layers of thin scars that covered his skin, running lengthwise as if some beast had repeatedly raked its claws up and down his arms.
Tepper essentially says to him, we were working in the fields, you were gone, uh, don't make trouble for us. And Calthier's basically saying, well, it doesn't really suit me. I have delicate hands. And he makes this show of these scars on his hands. And this interaction he has with Tepper is just so flippant. Not not quite disrespectful, but what's the word you would use?
I'm trying to put something on it's not. I wouldn't even go as far as uncouth. Like you said, it's not disrespectful.
Maybe a little
It's
punkish?
yeah, but it's not rebellious. Like as if he has anything to prove to them for them. So it's not that that's kind of rebellion. It's just raw confidence in what he is, as opposed to he's not trying to convince them of himself. It's just him being him.
Right.
There's no pretense here. He just tramples all over, but it's not malicious. I don't feel this. I don't feel malicious.
Agreed.
Um, it's kind of fun
Oh, he's
and
very
playful.
fun. He's very
He's playful.
roguish.
He's a rogue. Yes, he's roguish.
Yes.
Yes.
Uh, so Tepper believes that it's Kelsier's fault that the hovel was beaten that day,
Hmm.
which I suspect is not untrue.
Yeah, I don't. No.
To a point, that act of defiance of the smiling is what led to the beating. So Kelsier threatens to leave, and it's interesting because it's a threat.
Yes.
They Tepper doesn't like this guy, doesn't want him around, and the response is that he threatens to leave. But he opens the door, and this is where we learn, I think very viscerally, just how much the Ska fear the mist.
Yes.
Because Tepper, who is this thuggish leader, please close the door. Tepper's words were a plea, not a command.
Not a command. Yeah.
And Kelsier did as requested, pushing the door closed and stemming the flood of white mist. To which Kelsier says, the mist is not what you think, you fear it far too much. So there's, pardon the pun, a bit of mystique for us around the mist.
Yeah. We like okay. So he's really clearly not. The mist literally goes around his like where he's standing. So the mist itself doesn't damage you, but going out into it is the mist itself is scary, but it's not like, wow, miraculous that he's standing in it and not burning to death or something. So it's dangerous, but it's
Yes.
not that dangerous in that way. But then
Yes.
we do have men who venture into the mist lose their souls.
This was an interesting line for me because
Mm,
I'm curious to know how accurate this is. Is this just superstition or is there a
mhm.
literal element here? What do you think?
I'm okay. I'm leaning. There's okay. The literal element is what created the superstition. So it's all there's it has a function to scare them, but there's some truth to it. That's what I would think. That there's some clever truth to it. Um, is that a good enough answer? I don't know if that makes sense.
I think it's fair. I mean, lots of superstitions, beliefs are born of some sort of truth, right?
Yeah, like a very small, tiny, far
And
off,
then
minuscule truth that blows up.
and then rumors grow. But
Mm,
at the end of the day, they fear the mist, but Kelsier does not.
mhm. And also, had Kelsier walked in the mists, what then had happened to his soul? If only you knew, Kelsier thought. Which is like, if only we knew. Thank you. What did happen? So we still don't know. Um,
Yep.
but he doesn't. Whatever happened to him, he still would like. He still thinks it's not something that needs to be feared by the. He wants to rid them of that fear, but it's for another time or whatever.
Yes. And
Mm,
then we get into a lot more interesting exposition. He tells stories of other plantations. They've covered this is why the Ska keep him around, even though he's a traveler, for information from the
mm,
outside world. And he starts telling them these stories about faraway noblemen who are far from the capital, which I think it's clarified here is Luthadel, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But that was the impression I had. He tells stories of far off noblemen who treat the Ska better than those closer to the Lord Ruler, who believe that happy Ska make for better work, which I don't think is untrue.
yeah.
Uh,
Um, you still go, okay, cool. So what? Whoa, hold on. Morally, you're like, cool. So treat your slaves well, right? That's great, but they're still slaves, and then
yeah,
that gets addressed straight by Lord. How would you say Renew? Lord Renew.
Renier.
Yeah, has ordered his taskmasters to stop unauthorized beatings. So it's like, oh well, at least he's not done unauthorized beatings. Um, and there are whispers that he's considering paying wages to his plantation staff, like city craftsmen might earn. So that's also world building, nice subtle world building. That's not just telling you, hey, in the city there are these guys that will get paid. No, it's just like it's plantation scar, like city craftsmen might earn. It's just tiny little bits of, you know, when we compare this to world building in very bad TV, um, it, I know that they're different mediums, but there is a clunky way of world building when people say certain sentences that are just way too expositional. Um,
Yeah,
but this was nice. Just okay, it's at the end of the sentence. Like city craftsmen might earn. Boom. Okay, city craftsmen. There's people that are in a city. They can earn. They can earn some sort of wages. That's interesting.
those
So
scars on your arm give you away. You're a troublemaker. You travel the plantation stirring up discontent. You eat our food, telling your grand stories and your lies, then you disappear and leave people like me to deal with false hopes you give our children. And I have a tremendous amount of empathy for
mm-hmm.
Tepper in this moment, uh,
Yeah.
because from his perspective, like his hovel was beaten,
Yeah.
and
It's true. Yeah.
he's already talking, giving what he would see as false hope, stories of other lords that treat their ska better. Like from his perspective, it's almost mean in a way, almost cruel.
Yeah. It's don't and it's resigned to the fact that it's not worth fighting. That battle is not worth fighting. We're gonna lose. It just causes more pain to fight in this way, or to have hope in that way. It's much better and much safer to just deal with the hardships we already have as Scar. Trying to get past these things, having hope is way more dangerous. So just you're a troublemaker by giving people hope. Scar are not supposed to have hope. They're not supposed to have any kind of ambition
Right.
beyond
And
what they're doing. Yeah.
and we're seeing here firsthand now, not just from Lord Trusting's point of view, but from Kelsier's. The Ska don't complain, hope, or think.
Yeah, that's not just in. And I did think, okay, cool. They they do take the risk of, listening to him or letting him be around them. And yes, it was explained that they want to hear about everything. But I was thinking, well, why don't they report him? Like if he was such a troublemaker, like make the taskmasters take him or whatever. But it would just cause them way more trouble. So
Yeah.
they're always weighing up how much trouble would this cause our hovel if we now go and, just because you're being obedient and showing, oh, here's some troublemaker, whatever, you will still get beaten. So it just makes better sense for him to just come and go, and hopefully just not be seen. Reporting him is just not going to work out for them.
Right. And at this point, Kelsior pulls out this
Mm-hmm.
very large bag of food that he has stolen from Lord Trusting's food stocks or pantry.
Yes.
And I assumed, like right off the bat, that that would not have been an easy feat. But we
Yes.
also know he can disappear very quickly, so we're learning that this is a person of unique talents.
And he even has a problem with the way the food is. He's like, it's
Oh,
not
yeah, he
even.
complains about the food. He says,
He's,
and I might add that while your lord's taste in food is deplorable, his eye for soldiers is far more impressive. Sneaking into his manor during the day was quite a challenge. But
yeah,
because
and that's but he still did it. Yeah, because.
but because he's so flippant, because he's
Mm,
so pompous, I have to wonder, was it really that difficult? I
yeah.
don't think he's lying, because he doesn't seem like the kind of person that lies to me. But
Mm.
perhaps there's a touch of exaggeration here.
Maybe it's not that it was difficult. It's just it was more
Showmanship.
difficult. It was more difficult than he expected.
Yeah.
Like he did. He's more impressed by that. But it's just it's nothing he couldn't handle. But it was more than he thought he would be facing. That's as charitable as I can be about it. um, I think, but yeah, I don't think it was that difficult for him. I do get the sense because he is, like you said, so flippant. It's as if it just happened. It was like, oh, he had to think about it a little bit more than he would have. That means it was more difficult. And of course, for them, if it was something for them to undertake, of course it would be absolutely impossible,
Yeah.
and crazy to do. But also, also that gives us the impression he's done this before and he does it often. And he does it often enough to be fussy about the
Yeah.
food. Yeah.
At this point, the Ska don't eat like this, like ever. They're usually forced to eat just simple vegetable broth and
Mm-hmm.
boring vegetables. So the whole hovel becomes very excited and they have to make the evidence disappear. So they set about to eating it, and this even pacifies Tepper a
Mm.
bit, who goes off to eat the food. At which point, Menace comes up, who is an elderly Ska, which are rare.
Yes. They don't usually last that long because, well, it makes sense. They explain it to us, but it makes sense. A literal slave laborer, not very well taken care of, um, only has vegetable broth to eat and works hard labor all day long. They're probably going to get ill or die a lot sooner. Their life expectancy wouldn't be high. Yeah, it is. It's a testament of his strength that he's still there,
Yeah.
and Calcio
And
is impressed by that.
he is, but Menace, and he asks, like, how is one, where was it? He asks, why does he let Tepper lead? And Menace says, when you get to be
Mm,
my age, you have to be very careful where you waste your energy. Some battles simply aren't worth fighting. And there's talk about the implications therein. And Kelsier asks, "You're satisfied with this then? Uh, you're content with a life full of beatings and endless drudgery. At least it's a life," Menace said.
Mm-hmm. So we
So
just spoke about, yeah, it's exactly it. I know what wages malcontent and rebellion bring. He would just rather be in what he can do. Is this a battle we can really fight? No, that he's. Um, I love that. You're fighting it already, Goodman. Menace, you're just losing horribly. that I laughed. I got chuckled.
yeah, yeah, it's clear that Kelsier's trying to stir up these feelings. Like he hasn't
Mm-hmm.
said it yet, but it's clear he's trying to cause a change.
We've gone past one of the things that I highlighted. That was my favorite line.
What
We've
was your
gone
favorite
past
line?
mine. Mine was, new tastes are like new ideas, young man. The older you get, the more difficult they are for you to stomach. So he's coming in with this food, this all of these tastes and whatever, and stirring up all of this emotion and war or like rebellion. He wants to get people thinking about those things, and that's difficult to stomach. You would rather it's exactly what he is doing. He would rather just not fight this battle and just stay where he knows his place is. And that's it. So I really enjoyed that line. That was my favorite. Sorry, I just thought
It's
you were going forward, so I just wanted to quickly get back to that, and then we can go forward.
of
Sorry.
course, and it is a beautiful line, and I
Mm,
love the way you spoke of it. And then at this point, we really do get into the smiling aspect of Kelsior. Menace asks, "How do you do that? Uh, what? Smile so much?" "Oh, I'm just a
mm.
happy person." Flippant. Love it. And they talk about his scars, and we get
Mhm.
some more world building, some more exposition here. Menace basically says that he knew someone that tried to stir up rebellion, and he was sent to the pits of Hathsin, where he worked until
Yeah.
he died. The lad lasted less than a month.
Mm. Yeah. I highlighted Pits of Hess, and it's because I'm like, oh, that's gonna make a comeback, isn't it? That's a big deal.
Yeah.
And it's hey, they're pits. There's working that happens there, and this person who was probably young, the lad. I mean, I guess I know he's old, so anyone else's lad. But yeah, the lad lasted less than a month. Um, that's a bit scary. But then, what does that mean? Does that mean that he's been there and come out, or I, what are the scars? I want to hear more about the scars and understand the scars more.
I
Um,
suspect the scars might be either connected to the pits of Hathsin or connected to the magic, but I'm not certain. And then we do get into my favorite line. "You ask why I smile, Goodman Menace. Well, the Lord Ruler thinks he has
well,
claimed
this might
laughter
be
and
it.
joy for himself. I'm
Mhm.
disinclined to let him do so. This is one battle that doesn't take much effort to fight."
Very true. But then again, and much effort to fight, but there's a lot of consequences. If you smile, just the way that I don't even think he smiled. I don't remember it being a smile, but the point is just the way you look at at the person. If he looks with too much happiness at someone, that is it has a real world implication, a real world thing. And yes, it's easy to smile, but you will get beaten. So the actual effort, the actual action of smiling is a dangerous thing. But being happy, I like that. Yeah. The Lord Ruler thinks he has claimed laughter and joy for himself. Like you can have laughter and joy any, yeah. You can't. You even if you're in your hovel here where it's safe, you can even have that there. Why can't he smile right now?
There's
But they don't smile even if there is no consequence, the real world consequence. When they're among each other, they still don't do that. They don't dare to be happy because why would obviously look at their situation, but they don't find any. They don't look for any joy, or it's like we're not allowed that. So why do we even try?
yeah,
Why would we
and
even try?
my layman's knowledge of
Mm,
Stoicism, this seems very much like a Stoic idea. All you have is control over your own soul. This Lord Ruler may well control the world, but you can choose how you react to that
Yeah,
or how you
exactly.
think.
You can choose. Like it really, oh god, it was that was I knew that was either that might be the one because I saw your notes, so I knew that you said something about a favorite line, but one of the second most powerful lines for me that did stick out was the claimed laughter and joy for himself. It's like they can't even be happy. It was really
Except
good.
it almost gets Menace to smile.
I
Almost.
know, and he doesn't.
He doesn't. For a moment, Kelsier thought
Mm,
the old man might smile in return. But eventually Menace shook his head. I don't know. I just don't. And then they're cut off.
mm.
There's a scream. It came from outside, perhaps to the north, though the mists distorted sounds. The people in the hovel fell silent, listening to the faint, high-pitched yells despite the distance and the mist. Kelsier could hear the pain contained in those screams. Kelsier burned tin. And that
Yeah.
is our first introduction to the magic system.
Yep, that's I highlighted it. Just like, okay. I was like, what? Huh? Where are we? Okay, he burnt in. Okay. And obviously we go into but also the way that he put it, literally, it has its own line, Calcia, burnt in, and then there's the next line.
Yes.
Which I liked. It was as an experience of the first experience of the magic. Because I'm like, wait, how are you burning tin? Wait a second, huh? And obviously even if it was he burned wood, it would still not make sense. It would still be like, oh, something special is happening here. So
Right.
yeah, so it was a great introduction. Well, the great first sentence of a magic system. I enjoyed
And,
it.
and in this next paragraph, and I want to read the whole thing, there's a little bit of a contradiction here, I think. And I want you to
Hmm.
tell me if I'm correct. It was simple for him now, after years of practice. That sentence. The
Hmm.
tin sat with other allomantic metals within his stomach, swallowed earlier, waiting for him to draw upon them. He reached inside with his mind and touched the tin, tapping powers he still barely understood. Okay, that's the second sentence part. The
Hmm.
tin flared to life within him, burning his stomach like the sensation of a hot drink swallowed too quickly. So, magic elements aside, we learn that he has had years of practice, and it's simple for him, but at the same time, he barely understands. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I have that barely understood as in he just doesn't he barely understands how it could work, but it does. So while he knows how to use it, doesn't know what exactly how it's working, but it's simple. He can do it. And it's beyond him to understand. That's what I get. Like it could be it's just beyond understanding.
That's kind of where I was leaning. It's sort
Mm.
of like a tip of the iceberg. Like maybe he sees the elements that are pertinent, and it's a skill that he has to learn. And you can become practiced at a skill without necessarily knowing the true depths of the skill.
Yeah, how it works, or exactly what you're doing, if you're doing it the most efficient way, all of that. Because if you understood it all the way deeply into its tiniest, further than you understood using it, then you would maybe be able to improve yourself or something like that. So it means that there could be more for him to learn, but it also means that it's epic and cool
Right.
and crazy. Yeah.
And so, what do you make of the allomantic metals within his stomach that he swallowed earlier?
Very interesting. The word allomantic, so I'm just like, okay, well, mantic, I don't know, alloy or alloy. So I'm thinking of that metals. Okay, whatever. That's maybe where the name came from, where he got that idea.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Brandon, but then the metals within his, it was very strange. I'm like, oh, okay, we're just because I'm used to mind magic. Okay, this has got mind magic, but you have to use elements that are in your stomach. So maybe are they in his stomach because they have to be in his stomach, or are they in his stomach to hide? That's I'm intrigued, which
It
is great as the first experience of the magic. You just want to know how it works.
it brings two things to mind for me. One, just a
Mm-hmm.
funny image of a person eating a metal ball or a metal
Mm-hmm.
bar or something. Can't taste
Yeah.
good, I imagine. Um, and then it brings to mind, totally out of the realm of what this is, uh, I think China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, ate balls of mercury, thinking that it would grant him eternal life.
Oopsie.
It didn't work out for him. Um,
Really?
yeah. Um, but I love this idea of metallurgy or like metal magic.
Mm-hmm.
And it says specifically that he burnt tin. Does this mean that you could burn mercury? Does this mean you could burn steel or copper or bronze?
For all, yeah, for different, so if you use a different, yeah, I'm like, okay, so he's burning tin, but there's other elemental metals that he's not using, so he's using that one for this particular skill or particular effect, so that he can do what he does. We'll get into what he does, but yeah, that's exactly, it's told us that by that one sentence and other elemental uh, metals. So it's a great way we're being taught about the magic very subtly. Where it's like, okay, so he's using tin. So tin was the one that but he's got others in there. Okay, and this is what tin does. And okay, cool. I'm curious. Can they burn things at the same time? Can they do what will each metal do? Is it like, are there only, I suppose he says elemental metals, but is there something else that you can use? Are there other elements that you can use in this magic system? Very, very cool to think about.
Wonder. Wood,
I'm excited to find out
charcoal,
more. Yeah.
uh, coal. Allomantic
And
power, cert. Go on.
sorry, I was just also going to say, like, he calls it burning. Is that, I want to know, because now he barely understands it, right? So what could this be? Just burning because it feels like he calls it burning because it's burning. It feels burning. It feels like burning. Or is that like the magical term? Like that's what I was also thinking. Like is it just what he feels? So he started calling it that. Or was he taught that that's what he's doing? So he doesn't, that barely understood. That's what I mean. He's calling it burning, but is burning the real, is that even a term that's, say, a trained, or I don't know, yeah, is it a magical term, burning? That's all. That's what I was quite interested in that. It added to the barely understood part, so I want to know if other people call it burning, if that's
Yes,
what it is. Yeah.
I would like to as well. And I'm sure I am
Yeah,
so confident we're going to get more into it.
watch more.
Um,
Yeah, this is just the tiny little bit of it.
So allomantic power surged through his body, enhancing his senses. The room around him became crisp, the dull fire pit flaring to a near blinding brightness. He could feel the grain in the wood of the stool beneath him. He could still taste the remnants of the loaf of bread he'd snacked on earlier. Most importantly, he could hear the screams with supernatural ears. Um, so
Mm.
he's basically cast, for those who play D&D, it seems like he's cast haste on himself, and it's just like he becomes hyper aware of everything around
Mm.
him. And someone comments, "Poor Jess," a nearby woman said, her voice booming in Kelsier's enhanced ears. "That child of hers was a curse. It's better for Ska not to have pretty daughters." And
Oof.
Tepper says, "Lord Tresting was sure to send for the girl sooner or later. We all knew it. Jess knew it." So,
Yeah, but they're all taking it so well. Well, not well. They're just like, oh, that's bad. That it's not like, oh no, what do we do? It's not. It's just, oh, they're taking another one, which
yep,
really was scary. And it's like, oh, the way
a
it's
lot of
also like,
empathy.
it's better for Scar not to have pretty daughters, which is like, oh, what a shame. They were just born attractive, and and you can't be born a certain way because you just need to go under the radar.
Yeah,
It would be better for you to just not be. Uh, that hit me hard. This beautiful Scarnats have pretty daughters. It's just like, oh well, sorry. People would just, if someone just, because prettiness is yes, it is genetic, but then it's arbitrary. It's just, imagine your child just comes out there, oh well, it's pretty. So it reminded me of how little power they have, and also you think of daughters, I think of little daughters. So that's what I was. I even said oof when you read it, because I felt it. I was like, oh god.
Yeah.
Or
Uh,
for the crime of being pretty.
yep. Um, so Kelsier asks if Lord Trusting ever returns the girls after he's finished. Old Menace shakes his head. Lord
Hmm.
Trusting is a law-abiding nobleman. He has the girls killed after a few weeks. He doesn't want to catch the eye of the Inquisitors. So he kills these girls that he takes,
Hmm. That's what that now we know what we refer to as that he cleans up after himself.
which makes
Not
things
done.
much, much darker. Kelsier is angered. He's made very, very angry. I actually believe, like I fully believe that it was not his intention to do what he is about to do.
Yeah.
I think I think he was just gonna leave. I think he was just gonna sow his little seeds and go on his way until this happened.
Mm. Yeah.
Uh,
It really got to him. Didn't it say? But Kelsey's anger only built. The reals reminded him of other screams, a woman's scream from the past. I think it was before that. The screams continued. That it's the sound set something off within him. From there, that's it. You're like, okay, he's gone. The sound sets something off within him, and whatever happens from here, he goes way further than what he was supposed to. It sets something off. He wasn't there to do this. Um, so he's
Kelsier is triggered.
yeah, he's triggered. Um,
Um,
and this thing of sowing seeds and moving on. Yes, that is what he wants to do. But he doesn't want to bring them huge trouble. He wants to. He doesn't want to destroy everything. But yeah, you'll see what happens now.
so he gets a dangerous look in his eye, and Menace basically
Mm.
warns him, "Hey, hey, I don't think you can. This is not a fight you need to fight. I don't think you can win it." And Kelsier glanced toward the old man, then through the screams and the pain, he forced himself to smile. "I'm not here to lead a rebellion among you, Goodman Menace. I just want to stir up a little trouble. New days are coming. Survive a little longer, and you might see great happenings in the final empire. I bid you all thanks for your hospitality." And he strides out into the mist.
Yep.
Thus, and this ends Kelsier's POV.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's earned the moniker the Smiling Ska from me.
I like it. But oh, did you talk about half breed children
Oh, no, we didn't. So, in amongst the discussion about trusting
disposing of the women? Yeah.
and disposing of the women, we more or less learn that half breed children might have powers that Ska aren't supposed to know about, which I'm assuming is why it's such a taboo for the two to interbreed.
Mm-hmm.
I assume within the realm of this world that's a literal power, a magical power, but it could also be metaphorical in the sense that, like, if they start interbreeding, they might realize that they're
They're
not so
just people.
different from each other. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, and let's get into the next one.
All right.
Oops.
And so we make it to the next morning. So now we enter into Menace's point of view. He wakes up the next morning and he's sort of like mentally sitting in his age. He's thinking about the creaks of his bones and those little aches and pains. But there's a concern, for the rest. What will this hovel do without him? So he feels like he still has a place and that he just needs to keep going. And his mind goes to Kelsier.
Mm-hmm.
And he hoped that Kelsier had come to his senses and decided to move on. And he notes that he had seen the fire in Kelsier's eyes. It seemed such a shame that a man who had survived the pits would instead find death here on a random plantation trying to protect a girl everyone else had given up for dead.
So he did survive the pits. So that those scars
Yes.
are about the pits.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's a little bit of a confirmation in my mind there.
Mm. Yeah, because that's what
So he,
his scars would mean. You survived the pits. Okay.
and as he gets up and he starts moving, the pains of age decrease just a little bit, and he shuffles and he smells smoke. I wonder how difficult it is to make the distinction between constantly falling ash and smoke,
Yes.
but he smells smoke.
Smell
Um,
something new smoke.
yes. And we meet this nice, friendly little character, Shum. I love that name, Shum. Um,
Shum our chum.
yes. Yes, Shum our chum. So Meneth asks about the smoke, and Shum says, I always smell smoke lately. The ash mounts are violent this year. And that seems like a cool thing. So like I imagine them as like these big volcano things that just spew
Mm.
ash everywhere.
Yeah, that's where you would get constant ash from. It's not like there's just incidents of fire or whatever. It's the way this world is. They're like geologically, they just whatever is causing it, we don't know. But yeah, there's just constant ash from it. But that it you can have, like any other weather, you can have a lot of ash in a certain year versus another.
Yes. They get out and they start investigating a little bit. They reach this crowd of ska, which is unusual. They're not working for whatever reason, like they should be. Uh
Mm.
oh. Menace and Shum walk up to this crowd of ska, and at the center is the young girl. At the center of the group of people, he found Jess, her daughter, the one they all assumed had been taken by Lord Trusting, stood beside her. The young girl's eyes were red from lack of sleep, but she appeared unharmed. She came back not long after they took her, the woman was explaining. She came and pounded on the door, crying in the mist. Flen was sure it was a mist wraith impersonating her, but I had to let her in. So,
Mm.
mist wraiths.
Misrace are a thing, okay, and they impersonate. They can possibly.
So,
Um,
again, I'm not so sure. I wonder if that's just a little bit of superstition.
she's just yeah, because they already thought um it yeah, it could maybe be a non-specific thing that Miswraiths do, just because they blamed the Mistwraith because
Yeah,
they she's basically dead to them. He literally a page ago said everyone had left for dead, or
yeah,
they expect she's dead. So seeing her, that's just not a thing. They're like, oh, it must be a Mistwraith then. So it might not be that, like, law wise, mist are impersonators or tricksters in that way. It's just that, oh well, malignant magic thing probably
yes,
is the purpose for this. That's how unlikely it was that she would have come back.
exactly. But at the same
Yeah.
time, it very well could be that they impersonate. We don't have that
Mm.
information yet,
Yeah.
but it's really fun to think about.
I like not knowing, but I do want to eventually know.
Yeah. And Menace notes that there are no taskmasters coming to break up the group. And, this sense of it's not quite dread, but just this knowledge something is very wrong. So he continues north, moving frantically toward the manor house. By the time he arrives, others had noticed the twisting line of smoke that was barely visible in the morning light. Menace wasn't the first to arrive at the edge of the short hilltop plateau, but the group made way for him when he did. The manor house was gone. Only a blackened, smoldering scar remained. And someone says he killed them all. Jess's girl, the girl that was taken, explains that Kelsier basically came and killed everyone, including Lord Trusting and his obligator.
Just everyone dies. That shook me. I was like, oh, okay, he did it. He was getting her out, but I guess that's what he had to do. He had to have killed everyone for her to get out.
Yeah,
There is just no way that he could have just smuggled her out or whatever. Like, if he had smuggled her out, of course, then um the hovels, all of them would be beaten for it, so that's a problem.
we
So he
didn't
decides this.
we didn't mention it earlier, but it's established that for Lord Trusting, if one of his ska runs away, that
Mm.
entire ska's family dies.
Yes, yes. In the beginning, in his POV, it's like he actually kind of prides himself, or even the obligator is impressed that it's like, oh, so he's managed to keep rebellion out of his scar because he like makes an example of a runaway's family. He kills the whole family. Yeah.
Yeah. So the only thing that Kelsier can do is kill them all. And
Mm-hmm.
that's going to lead to some interesting discussion that we'll have, but we'll get there. Um, one of the ska wonders if Kelsier was a mistwraith. So again, and it's part of why I'm so hesitant to take anyone at their word on the
Mm-hmm.
topic of the mistwraiths, is they seem so quick to blame everything on the
On
mistwraiths.
yeah, it's like, oh, it's Mistwraith. Uh-huh. But they do seem to think no. Also, Mistwraith. She's brought her daughter out into the sun now, and now that she hasn't burned up, she's
Yes.
so that's the way we prove that they're not Mistwraiths. But they still
Yes.
aren't sure about Calcia because they're like, yeah, but he did go in the sun, but they're still like, I don't know.
He
He,
just did something
mm,
impossible.
he just yeah, so he must be some yeah. Again, it lends itself to the fact that okay, we're going to blame the Mistwraith for
Yes.
anything or call anything unusual Mistwraithry.
So Tepper asks, why would that troublemaker do something like this? Doesn't he understand the damage he's done? He understands, Menace said. He warned us, Tepper. He came to stir up trouble. But why? Because he knew we'd never rebel on our own, so he gave us no choice.
You.
And it's one of the interesting dynamics here, I think, is Tepper
Mm.
had been introduced to us as a thuggish leader, but in this time of crisis, Tepper seems to turn to Menace, and Menace seems to take on that leadership role.
Mm-hmm. In a physical way, Tepper will be doing what he can, but when it comes to actual decisions and thinking and mind work, he looks to the real elder
Yes,
in Menace.
yes, and I'm really hoping we get to see more of Menace throughout the story.
Mm.
I suspect we might not, but I'm hoping he'll come back in some.
Yeah, I'm wondering if these could be just the kinds of characters that they're kind of Easter eggs later on.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, it happens a lot in real time, and I enjoy it. And also, I guess it's what people that don't read fantasy what they don't like. One of the things that I've heard them say, or what they're like, there's too many characters, and it's so hard to keep track. And yes, it is what I
mm,
understand, but when you use it, even if you're going to be exposed to a character for a very short time, they're memorable and they have a purpose. So I like the sort of referring back to them and remembering who they are um, at a later stage, Easter eggy kind of wise. But some
yes.
people that aren't used to this sort of thing, they're like, well, why did he put this in? One of the first things people spoke about with when they actually read a Song of Ice and Fire, basically the whole collection, whatever. They hadn't read anything else fantasy wise, and they just didn't understand. And it's not he doesn't even George R. R. Martin doesn't even do this sort of Easter eggy thing as much, but every in a fantasy novel like this or fantasy story, you're going to have characters that you don't know whether you're going to see them again. But you obviously will get your main characters, and also so early in the book, we're obviously not sure of these things. But I had the exact same
Right.
thought that I like these characters. I like him. He's wise. He's worldly. Well, worldly. Not worldly, because he's been insulated. But what do I mean? Wise, just wise.
Yeah.
He's knowing. He knows things.
And
um,
he has a certain calm about him.
yes, yeah. Exactly. And you would lean on him. He just seems a natural person that you would want to always ask about what should be done. And I would also be in that way of, what do we do when we lose him? Who is the next person? Because it's very clear that the next person we have is not as wise and not as, he's less.
Right. So they discuss what's going to happen now. They know that if they stay, the Lord Ruler's more or less going to kill all of them. So they determine that they have to go to the caves to the east. Travelers say there are rebel ska hiding in them. Perhaps they'll take us in. And Tepper says we'd have to travel for days, spend nights in the mist.
Mm-hmm.
And Menace says we can do that or we can stay here and die.
Mm.
New days indeed. And that ends the chapter.
I like it. It is new days. It's very interesting that they have been pushed into rebellion. Actually, this is the only way.
So building off of what I had said, and now we can just get into a quick discussion of our impressions. Like I said, I suspect that Kelsier had intended to just plant his seeds and then move on. I don't think he had intended to kill Trusting and everyone there. So is this fair to the Ska? Forcing them into this position? Is this good? What do you think?
It's too big of a moral question, because yes, you want people to rebel, to not be oppressed. So anything that gets them to that end, we want that. But now, and also they have not had a choice. All of these people have not had a choice to rebel. They've now been the choice was made for them. But then there is the thing of, well, they are so oppressed that they wouldn't have made that choice anyway. So you can see both sides of it. But it was very traumatic.
Yes. Kelsier doesn't seem to fear the mist, but at the same time, it seems like that there is something to fear about the mist. So I'm wondering if doing this is almost a death sentence, at least for some of these folks. And that's a little bit of the hang up for me here.
Oh, yeah, that they would have to go out into the mist.
Yeah.
So that depends. So for you, like, say if the mists really were this dangerous, it is a death sentence. That is, first of all, it would have been a death sentence if they didn't run because of the Carlos that would come in and slaughter them. But so there's that. But he's given them a chance. I suppose they have to travel to the caves. So you're saying he has still essentially killed people because of that traveling that they have to do now. I just don't know, because they're willing to undertake the mist. I'm like, okay, so what are the chances? I'm not familiar with what a person's chances are out in the mists, and will they learn not to fear the mists? So maybe they'll learn that there is nothing to actually fear about it, and maybe they won't be killed. I don't know. That's why I do want to go back to him. We can't leave this and then hear about them later when our hero meets the cave people. I can't leave that. I can't leave them for that long. But that's what I'm expecting to happen.
Wonderful. Okay, so no specific element, but what's your first impression? And what did you like and what did you dislike?
I can't find anything to dislike.
Same.
I'm sorry. I can't.
It's certainly too soon. There's not enough.
Yeah, there's nothing at the moment. I think my appreciation shines throughout the whole discussion we've had. So all of the stuff that I did like is all of the stuff that was written. It's there. So
it's not a difficult read either, like the language and the pacing.
Say that. Yes, I really thought Brandon Sanderson would have a more difficult style than Robert Jordan, but it isn't at all. I thought that he would have, because I don't know him at all. I don't know his writing at all. The only way I know him is through Wheel of Time. And he took on Robert Jordan's style, and lots of people can criticize Robert Jordan's style for being too simple or just not descriptive in the way they wanted to be descriptive. But he also has a very easy style. I love it. I really do, because it's still very expressive. You still get all of the imagery you need, but it's not unnecessarily complex. I really do like it. That was one thing I actually did have a mental note of, is that this is very easy reading, but that doesn't make it shallow reading at all.
Agreed. And I like Kelsier. He
I think you
seems
do.
he seems very fun. I like
Yeah.
Menace.
Mhm. Yeah,
I like it.
I like Kelsier. I think we're supposed to.
Yeah. And
Even though this moral, even for you, sorry, question.
yeah.
That this moral question came up for you at the end there, because like, is this a good thing that he did? You like him, so you can understand. You still like him, given he's made a moral choice. His actions, given his actions, you still like him.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what he did was very gray. I don't think I gave a definitive answer when I asked you, because I didn't want to.
Yeah.
But the
I gave my
grayness of
answer and you didn't give yours.
but it's a gray world filled
Hmm.
with ash.
Ah.
And I do like him, and it's foolish to hope for the best, I think, because we're at the start of the journey, so there's obviously going to be low points going in. But
Hmm.
I'm here for the journey, and I'm excited. I am primed, and I just we learned so much about this world already in such a short span of time, and we got three distinct perspectives, and that is incredible. We had the nobleman's perspective, the villain's perspective, this
Mm-hmm.
expectation of how the world works and what the hierarchy is. Then we've got this younger, roguish, more optimistic, rebellious type. And then we
That
have this
has
whole,
power of a sort. That clearly
absolutely,
has power. Can destroy a whole house, and that can make moves in this rebellion.
yes. And you're coming from Robert Jordan. I'm coming from Game of Thrones, George R. R. Martin. So I'm used to like one POV per chapter. So
Mm-hmm.
it was neat switching between POVs in the same chapter.
Yeah, it was nicely done. It was flowed very nicely to go from. I know nicely is not a great word, but I just it was perfect. Okay, in that it flowed from one point of view to the other. I like that it ended in Menace's one, and what's the name? Kelsier is not there. He's gone. We don't hear, like, it's boom,
Yep.
like a mist race. He's out. He's done this crazy thing. He's upended these people's lives, and then he's out.
You could
Um,
say the ska missed him.
ah, yes.
Oh, I
Oh, perfect.
just had an image of all the subscribers I don't have unsubscribing.
No, they have to subscribe for the puns.
Yes.
But
Speaking
uh,
of which,
yeah,
everyone should go subscribe to ThatDarnKitteh. She has really incredible videos. On Tuesdays, she does debate diagrams with the occasional book diagram as well.
mhm.
And then on Thursdays, she has a panel show of which I am the star. No, that's not
Yes,
true, but I am there, cracking
one of the
jokes.
stars. Cracking
I
jokes. Yes.
think that's
Yeah, what
everything.
I do want to say is new days are coming. Survive a little longer, and you might see great happenings in the final empire. I bid you all thanks for your hospitality. Sorry, I thought that was a good.
It is a good one.
When I read that, it's quite a because that's what we're getting from literally from this book. We're gonna get great happenings in the final empire.
Yes.
Thank you for your hospitality.
Thank you all, and we'll
Yeah.
see you in chapter 1.
Till next time.
Bye.